The Super Smash Bros. Games are extremely known for extreme action and brutal fighting between famous characters. But one curious question that I had recently is how likely would I be able to survive in this game? Well, obviously, if I was just like a standard person, I would obviously get beat to shreds. But this is just assuming I have like a basic moveset, but definitely less compared to some of the other characters, and mostly just human. Alright, without further ado, let's get into it. First off is the original Smash Bros. On the N64. You might think that this would be somewhat manageable, but with several difficulties. However, the reality is the complete opposite of that. If you're a massive Nintendo nerd like me, you'd remember that in the opening cutscene, all of the characters are literally just plushies. They're practically harmless. I can either just throw them around the room or tear them in two. Just please don't do that with any actual real-life Nintendo merch. Also, the Master Hand is probably just the kid controlling the plushies, and I think that's a pretty easy fight. This is probably the freest and easiest S tier out of anything in this list. Now it's time for Smash Melee, and this one is almost the exact same as the first game. However, instead of plushies, we have trophies, which, fun fact, is the inspiration for the Amiibos that came out in 2014. Sure, they may actually be, solid objects this time that don't squish, but I can just throw them on the ground a couple of times and they're out or cracked. Even if all of them jumped off the table at the same time, I'm still surviving, even if I do have a couple of, little injuries or just a little bit of cuts and scrapes. Since it is slightly harder compared to the N64 game, I think I'll give this game a solid A tier. I'm still easily winning this. Now we have Super Smash Bros. Brawl, and this one I think is where I'm the most cooked. On top of the characters being to scale now, the regular mode itself could probably kill me. It just depends on the circumstances of whether or not I survive, but I'm definitely cooked during the Subspace Emissary. I would immediately get turned into a trophy, and even if I made it to endgame, I would be turned into a trophy by Taboo. The only reason why all the other characters survived was because Sonic swooped in and saved the day. Probably getting D tier. The next entry was Smash Bros. On the 3DS. Now, this one is basically the most basic Smash Brothers out of the entire franchise. There's nothing interesting to it, no compelling story mode, no interesting new modes. It's literally just your own standard Smash Bros. Game. So, I think survivability is, at a somewhat decent level. I'm gonna give this one B tier just because, there's nothing really special. It's just, basic fighting in Smash Bros. When you think of it. Super Smash Bros. For the Wii U is essentially the same thing as the 3DS. I mean, they both came around in the exact same time, so it makes sense that they'd be pretty similar games. This one, like the 3DS game, doesn't have any story mode, which gives me a lot of points for living, so it really just depends on how well I'd be able to do in a match, which is the literal exact same as the 3DS version, so I'll give it a B tier. Now we have the latest entry in the Smash Bros. Series, which is Smash Bros. Ultimate. This has everything that carries from Smash 4, but with a new story mode in the form of World of Light. This one is kind of complex though, because if you think about it, you would either get turned into a spirit or one of the unlockable characters. If I became one of the unlockable characters, I'd still be able to join the team of whatever team the player is on. But then, if I was a spirit, at the end of the game, I would still soar away freely. So, no matter what happens, I still get a good ending. But it still is very likely for me to die. So, I guess I'll put it in C tier. Anyway, now that our tier list is done, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I spent a lot of effort on it, and I haven't been doing so good with the channel lately. So, if you would like to support, please like and subscribe. Alright, I'll see you in the next one.